It's a little bit dark out here at the moment, but what I've done, I've taken all the wires out of the lamp lights. Just here, I took a picture of some of the wires for future reference. And using those wires, what I did, where they were in that bit of chocolate block, or that connection block, I recreated those connections inside this box. There goes my pliers, cutters. But rather than the wires that are part of the light coming out the other side, I ran another cable from the end wire on one of these new lamps, and then I connected it up in here using these Wago connectors. Now I've seen our electricians at work use them. I used them when I was in the workshop, so I went and got some off of online, and what they do, a little block with levers on the end, so you can pull those levers out. Oh, nice and easily with one hand. So you pull those levers out, you put the cables in the end, and when you snap them shut, they grip the cable, and that connects everything on that line. So all three of them are joined together. I used a 2 in there because there was one cable that came in that just went to the lamp. I used a 3 in there because there were 2 cables that came in that went to the lamp. And in the little selection box it had, I didn't have any 4s, but I did have a 5. And that 5 connected all the earths together. Now, although these lamps don't have an earth, I did connect the earths in anyway. You just never know. It's always there if something changes in the future. So, just need to put the cover on and switch the electric back on in fact, let's do that now. Turn the power back onto the workshop, and first time. Very pleased with that, and look how much light there is. That will do. So next stage, the other 6 lamps I've got, I will evenly spread out in the other workshop. I might even only put 5 of them out because, or 4, I'll put 4 out to begin with. When the bench goes down this wall, I might rig up 1 or 2 of them on the underside of one of these shelves to shine down onto the bench. I might find it's too bright, in which case I'll put them out in the other workshop. But there we go. I've actually got some light out here now, some decent light. So I'll take this old tube down, and that can be, I would say, disposed of, but what's more likely to happen is it will be put in storage here somewhere. So yeah, on to the next little bit, a bit of tidying up. But now I've got loads of light in here, much better lighting. I might start on that, getting that coronation wired up. Back in the house now, and just had a delivery, because although the Brit is in the living room at the moment and it's going back in the snug, I was told that the engine against that blue background was clashing. So, been online, I've got a backdrop to intended for double O gauge, or it might be an O gauge, I'm not sure, one or the other. And I'm just going to stick that on the wall and then bring the engine back in. So first of all though, where these brackets are, I'm just going to mark out onto the paper where the brackets are, and then cut little slices out. And then I'm just going to blue tack it onto the wall for now. So now, just to cut that piece out. And there we go. With some trusty blue tack, it's stuck to the wall. It comes in 2 parts, this won't quite be long enough. I think the engine comes up to about here. So I'm going to have to put some of the next one on, but I might stop it. Well, I'll put the whole thing up for now and we'll see where my wife wants it stopped. And there we go. Just need to tidy up a little bit and bring the engine in. I suppose I could add that this back seam came from Hatton's. Next day delivery, which was great. But I also bought a snow seam one. So when we change our decorations in the house for Christmas decorations, the snow seam's going up for a bit of a change. Just means moving the engine out of the way and taking that down. Do the same again, put it up, but that one can be rolled up and put in the tube and swapped over for a month or so at Christmas. So one last thing, one last little project for tonight. Although I said the next thing is the coronation, I've backtracked a little bit. I've thought I'd give the Britannia one last run for the year, probably on Sunday. Got a friend visiting and he'd like to see it. So I thought, right, I need to get the drain cock linkages off, drop the bogey stretcher off, stuff we've all seen before, I've talked about before. But something I have noticed while I'm doing this is I must not have put a pipe back quite right last time. So have a look at this. So this pipe here is the steam feed for the drain cocks, steam operated drain cocks. And this pipe has been rubbing on the bogey wheel. So when I put this back together, I'm going to make sure I bend that pipe and actually look at it with the bogey in place and make sure it's not touching in that way. And I'm going to have a good look at it now to make sure it hasn't worn right through to the steam space. I'll let you know. So it looks like, although yes it is a fault and it is something that's not right, I may have found a previous repair. I'm not saying that when I put it back together last time the bogey hasn't been rubbing on it, but that certainly looks like soft solder in there and not just copper. So like I say, I'll put it back and make sure it's bent out of place. So if you remember, the taper we have here is a 1-in-6 taper, which is what is generally considered the correct positioning to the top of the chimney, whether it be Greenlee or Martin Evans or Swindon. That's generally the thing. That taper should hit the top of the chimney, ideally clip the top of the chimney, but if not clip it, it should be inside it. Well, what we've got here is a bit of a wobbly gap. So how do we cure that? We need to lower it down, but how much to lower it? What I'm going to do is just scribe a line on there, which I've done on the other side already, and then I'm going to lift it out, drop it down until it touches, and scribe another line. Here's one I did earlier, and that will tell me roughly how much I need to drop it by. So by my reckoning, the blast nozzle needs to drop down by just under ½ an inch. So if we aim for ½ an inch or more, if we can get more than ½ an inch, then we can always build it up. We can always put a nut underneath the blast nozzle, so we screw it down, then lock a nut underneath, or make a longer nozzle or spacer underneath, or you can do anything to raise it up. But it's very difficult to drop it down if the blast nozzle's too high. So let's have a look inside. It's black. I'll get a torch, I'll be back. Right, so as you can see, there is a bit of a raising there. What I'll do, check that. No, that's not really helped. So what I'll do, I'll ignore that. I need to take that stretcher off still, and then we'll see about how to get that pipe out. So with that stretcher off, we can see, hopefully if I take off those two nuts and the other side, I might still have a problem because they might be nut and bolted through the frames. Didn't think about that. I thought it was going to be tapped into the frame and it was a bolt on the inside. I might revert back to the drawings and have a look, because I really don't want to be taking the cylinders off if I can help it. I'll have a look and see what I can come up with. So, according to the drawing, it is a countersunk bolt coming through the frame with a nut on the inside. There's no way I can get that bolt out without removing the cylinders from the frame, because the cylinder obviously is here. So we must come up with another plan. So in actual fact, where that sits, if I just put a reducer in the top of that nozzle, top of that pipe, I could make that work. So it hasn't actually got to go lower, but if I'm to reuse this nozzle, it does need to screw in further. So what I might try and do is, there's plenty of thread there that it's screwing into, and there's enough thread on the top there. I could try boring out the first half of this so that it sits further down on the nozzle inside there. It's either that or I need to put more thread on that. I think counter boring this is going to be an easier option. So first of all, I have counterbored that first end and then run the tap back into the top. And also I've thinned the top of the cap slightly, so there's not as much of a thickness there. So in two directions, I've moved the whole thing down and I've taken the top down a bit. Let's see how much difference that's made. So, that's where it was. This is where we've got to. So I've got about half the distance I need so far. We need more. I might have to shorten the top of the pipe in there. So first off, I have put some extra thread on the pipe using a lathe die stock holder, which just about fitted in there, and just turning it with my pliers. Yeah, so we've added some more. We'll see what that's done and then look at shortening it slightly. But what about swarf going down the blast pipe? So what I'm doing, I have thought about this. I've attached a pipe to the drain cock coming from the air compressor, and I'm going to turn the wheels until that cylinder is on exhaust. That end of that cylinder, because when that's on exhaust, the cylinder will go straight to exhaust and I can blow a jet of air through there, and that will just stop the swarf dropping down the blast pipe, in theory. But it's the best I can do without taking the cylinders off. Ideally I take the cylinders off, but that's a massive job, and let's face it, I don't want to be doing that again. So I believe this is going to work. See what we can do. So as you can tell by the swarf, job done. Take it down a bit, and if I put my taper back inside, it is jamming at the top and not at the bottom. It's ever so slightly loose at the bottom, which I'd prefer. So we will give that a try on Sunday and see what happens. Just to put it all back together now. especially the bogey, which didn't actually have to come off in the first place. And there we have it, all reassembled, ready to run, and back in our home with a lovely backdrop. All that's left to be done at this stage is to 3D print a tunnel mouth to go on the wall there. So, job well done for today.